Good afternoon on May 23rd, 2023. I'm Matthew Roccio. That's Bob Ramsey, and this is Daily Cards Live. Talk a little Cardinals baseball as they have game two of a four-game set in Cincinnati after last night's loss in 10 innings. Before we get into all that, Brammer, how are you doing this afternoon, sir?
Doing very well. Looking forward to baseball tonight and see if the Cardinals can get back after they let one slip through their fingers last night.
Let's talk a little bit before we get into some of the news coming from John Denton and the other writers at the park today and get into today's lineups. Last night, obviously, a loss in 10 innings. Really just, crazy that they couldn't get anything across considering they had the bases loaded so late. And then you get the odd ninth inning for Ryan Helsley where, he's already 4 outs in. He gets no hits allowed. He walks one. He gets 3 strikeouts. But because of a walk, wild pitch, sac fly kind of sequence, the Cardinals drop the game, and Helsley has a loss on his list. Just an odd game for the Cardinals at the back end. The positive, a ton of strikeouts, 14 strikeouts. You're still able to put together 5 runs on 7 hits. The offense still giving you enough to win a game in that area. But again, the pitching with Jordan Montgomery only going 4 innings and now being taxed, and the bullpen continues to get stretched. Just not the concise game you wanted to see the Cardinals start Cincinnati off.
Well, where the offense has come, from where the offense has come and where they are now, to not be happy with it would be silly. The offense is really clicking, tons of contributors up and down the lineup. There are going to be days where you're going to have to score a bunch, but the real problem is pitching, twofold. Starting rotation is not competitive. It's just not competitive. I'm not saying even good. It's not competitive. They've got to figure that out. 2, they got to figure out the closer / Helsley thing. Hey, if we're going to pitch him, we can't count on him the next night anyway. We might as well pitch him too. He seems like the perfect candidate for the Dave Duncan, Tony La Russa, only the last 3 outs. And then hopefully you get him a few pitches so you can get him at 2 nights in a row, night off 2 nights in a row. His inavailability has forced Ollie into today's bullpen, tomorrow's bullpen. He's got a 2-platoon bullpen. But if it doesn't go just right, because the starters don't go deep, all this stuff sort of compounds, and you just get a disaster. And they have got to figure this out, or all the offense in the world will not save this club.
Yeah, and I think it's they've been taxing the bullpen from the very get-go of the season, and you're starting to see the problem with it. And I think last night was a big example of that. And obviously then you get last night's situation, and that now bleeds into today because you have John Denton reporting about an hour ago on Twitter. You can follow him at John Denton 555. You can check out these reports for yourself. He said, and I'm going to quote this just from Twitter, St. Louis Cardinals manager Ali Marmol said left-handed pitcher Matthew Liberatore will be available in relief tonight because of the shortage of relievers available following Monday's 10-inning loss. Marmol said the team can't afford overexposing the bullpen just so Liberatore can start in Cleveland. Bottom line, being able to put Matthew Liberatore into a rotation, whether as a 6-man, and lengthening that rotation a little bit just through that move, would have been the best thing for the St. Louis Cardinals. And yet from the get-go, despite the strength of Matthew Liberatore's start, right out of the gate, it was a mishmash kind of, we might start him unless we need to use him in relief beforehand. And then they tried to kind of use his relief in a higher leverage version of a bullpen where you would have thrown those pitches anyway, and they would have been at that intensity, but yet now you're putting him in a relief situation when he was just a starter. So the mental side is nowhere near a bullpen. And so now they're messing with that, and now they aren't going to be able to start him potentially in Cleveland because of a 10-inning game. It's just the mistakes that led them to be behind the 8 ball, even though they're starting to win games now, they're still starting to come back and kind of bite them in the ass.
We lost you for a moment, Matt, but I think your point's well taken. It's not in the history of the game, it's not unusual for kids coming up to spend time in the bullpen and get spot starts and that sort of thing. But that's not a typical spot when nobody in your rotation is delivering. I find it.
Oh, and it looks like we lost Rammer there. My apologies to everybody on the stream. It looks like we lost Rammer there on the broadcast. I think he was trying to kind of get into the fact that it's not just one pitcher's fault. It's kind of the general issues going on with the St. Louis Cardinals pitching staff. And that's why Matthew Liberatore is now being taxed in a weird way, where instead of using him in a starting role, he's now in a reliever's role, which he's not built for, and which he has not conditioned himself for. Heck, we see what's going on, not with Woodford. We see what's going on with Thompson, who they moved back down to the minors because they need him in a starter's role, and now he's being used as a reliever, so now they need to lengthen him out. Sorry, Rammer, we lost you there for a second. What I got for what you were going for is that the pitching issue is just it's not one pitcher. It's the fact that you now kind of toyed with some of these arms, and what I was getting into is that you have this Liberatore situation where he was starting and now he's a reliever, and it's kind of a weird balance when you consider what was just going on with Thompson, who despite being one of your best relievers, you now move to the minors because you have to lengthen him out as a starter because that's where you want him overall. It's just another combo of moves that just seem to be made to kind of balance each other, but they don't actually fit. It's kind of like the outfield move and the catcher move and the infield log jam and all these little things that have been connected that the Cardinals make one move, they pull one lever, and that creates one problem that they then have to pull another lever, and that creates another one, and that's an issue of roster construction. That's what happens when you have a roster that isn't constructed as well as it should be.
And I think there's some ego and contract play here. After his first start, this is a parlor game exercise. It's not reality. We've seen him do one start. So let's say you got 6 candidates to start a game. Everybody's on the same amount of rest. Again, this is fantasy. Of these 6 guys right now, who would you want to see start?
Matthew Liberatore would be number one. Well, he'd be number
one. Why
is
he the guy in the bullpen? Are you playing contracts? Are you worried about hurting somebody's feelings? Maybe both. Hey, and these are people. They're not just numbers. I get it. But if Liberatore delivers again in another start, assuming one's going to come, you just got to start thinking about dumping somebody out of the rotation, and there will be feelings hurt, and there will be a big contract in the bullpen. That's what's going to happen if they're really trying to win now.
That's the big question. That's the big question. Rammer, correct me if I'm wrong, but what side does Matthew Liberatore pitch from?
I believe we old schoolers like to call it a southpaw.
And what arm does Steven Matza throw what he calls pitches?
He is a lefty.
Oh, okay. It seems like there's a spot in there. Just heck, the guy's even pitched out of the bullpen before in the last 12 months. What a novel idea. Let's get into the Cardinals lineup against the Cincinnati Reds today. Game 2 of 4 from Great American Ballpark. It's a lineup match between two righties, Adam Wainwright for the Cardinals and Graham Ashcraft for the Cincinnati Reds. And let's get into that lineup for the Cincinnati Reds. TJ Friedl, center fielder, leading off. Matt McClain at shortstop, batting second. Jonathan India is at the DH and batting third. The left fielder, Jake Fraley, batting fourth. Tyler Stevenson, the center, at fifth. First baseman, Spencer Steer, batting sixth. Third baseman, Nick Senzel, at 7. Right fielder, Will Myers, batting eighth. And at the bottom, Kevin Newman, the second baseman, at the 9 spot for the Cincinnati Reds. And your St. Louis Cardinals. And again, these lineups presented by Bootleg and Tavern and Bootleg and Bob's. You can check out Bootleg and Tavern, 4501 Shoto Avenue, and Bootleg and Bob's at 3457 Morgan Ford Road. That Cardinals lineup leading off for your St. Louis Cardinals center fielder, Lars Nootbaar, followed by at the DH today, Paul Goldschmidt batting second. Nolan Gorman is your second baseman. He's batting third. Nolan Arenado, your third baseman, batting fourth. Wilson Contreras is behind the plate and batting fifth. Paul DeJong at shortstop, batting sixth. Brendan Donovan is playing first base. He's batting seventh. Tommy Edman in right field, batting eighth. And Alec Burleson will be in left field. He is batting ninth. Interesting move there with Paul Goldschmidt to the DH spot today, and that means that Brendan Donovan plays first base. That's kind of what we've seen. In fact, the last time I was on with Joe Roderick was a similar lineup, and my only comment was, again, I think it's funny that it's funny to me. I just want to see this lineup, except I want to see both Donovan and Edman in the outfield, because I think it'd be funny after the early season outfield logjam to then have a game where both of the infielders are playing in the outfield. And then you can put Alec Burleson at left field or at first base, and it would be hilarious to me.
Yeah, you know, it is interesting that Burleson looks burly. First of all, that's not my point. Just popped into my head. That's not good. He looks like a first baseman.
He does,
but I guess he's not.
No, he started one game there last year, and he played, and he came in for a defensive substitution at one point in this game, or one point in this season.
It's interesting. The Reds hurler tonight, the right-hander, he's got some weird reverse splits. So that's why I think Donovan and Burleson are down in the lineup instead of like hitting fifth and seventh. I assume that's the reasoning. I
think that's fascinating, actually. And you know what? While you bring up splits, I want to push Cardinals fans to something. Not only should you go to STLtoday.com and read Derek Gould and Ben Frederickson's incredible eulogies for just a Hall of Fame person in Rick Hummel, but also I want to say Derek Gould dropped an article today on the Cardinals, and he talked about last night's split battle between the Reds and the Cardinals and kind of the pitch hitting situations that they went through. I thought that was fascinating, but he also got into overall the Cardinals being a really interesting split team where it's like I think they have the seventh best batting average against both lefties and righties, and they have the fourth best OPS against both lefties and righties. And so they're kind of an interesting split team. So we'll see what happens, see if they can take advantage of that tonight. This has been Daily Cards Live on ClavesOnline.com. We'll be back with another edition. Joe Roderick will be back with you tomorrow as the Cardinals go to Game 3 against the Cincinnati Reds. We'll see if they can get a win back in the win column today. Rammer, before we go, though, please tell everybody about our friends over at Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks of Missouri, you know, they've been in St. Louis serving you for over 60 years. St. Louis proper, the East Side in Jerseyville and Granite, St. Charles County, and, of course, the newest branches in Northeast Missouri. Royal Banks of Missouri, where better service means better banking.
And again, a great place to watch today's game, Bootleggin' Bob's or Bootleggin' Tavern. Check them out. Rammer, thank you so much for joining me today. I will talk to you tomorrow on Two Man Game when we talk a little basketball. But also, again, you can join Daily Cards Live again tomorrow. Rammer, you have a great rest of your day.
You too, buddy. Talk to you tomorrow.
And enjoy the game, St. Louis.
At St. Louis Acura, we have over 100 new Acura models and over 160 pre-owned models in stock or on the way in May. Get 4.9% financing for up to 60 months on 2023 Acura MDXs, TLXs, Integras, and RDX models. Or get a certified rate as low as 3.49% on certified TLX and MDX models. And you can earn up to $1,500 in loyalty incentives. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.